So, welcome. I am Ben Bruce. I'm the Active Schools Coordinator for Ullapool, and I am joined by the two young ambassadors for Ullapool, Esmee Lunn and Lewis-Ing. And today we are talking a little bit about the Active Girls Sport Scotland initiative, which is all about increasing opportunities for girls and young women in sport and physical activity. So we thought, what better to do that than talk to athlete within Scotland, and especially one that's gone through the Ullapool High School schooling system. So we have our special guest, which is Malin. Malin attended Ullapool High School and has now, well, not has now become, but is a Scottish International Judoka. She has some pretty impressive performances. She has 2 silvers at the Malaga European Open and the Dubrovnik Senior European Open, gold at the Bratislava European Open, and most notable, she recently represented Scotland at the Commonwealth Games of Birmingham this year and won bronze. So welcome, Malin. How are you doing?
Oh, good. Glad to be here with you guys from Ullapool, because I'm in Madrid and it seems really far away from Ullapool.
Well, I can tell you right now, it is chucking it down and it is like gale force winds. So it is. I wish I was in where you were.
It's nice to be far then.
Well, perfect. So I will hand over to the girls. They are going to ask you the questions that they have prepared for you. And so I'll hand over to Poppy and Esmee.
So the first question is, who inspired you to get into who inspired you to get involved in sports, and do you have any role models when you were growing up?
Okay, so my family, both my mum and dad, I was going to say they're still very, very active. Like, they're very outdoorsy. They've always done outdoor sports, and then little by little they started doing other kinds of sports, like Tai Chi. Bring my sisters to ballet, like all sorts of sports. I think I couldn't have done more sports as a kid, and then all the way through high school as well. So I think inspired into doing sport. I wouldn't say I've ever been inspired into doing it. I've just done sport, and because I liked it, I kept going. And when I started doing judo, I knew that my had done judo before, and that my uncle and my grandpa on my dad's side, they'd all done a wee bit of judo. So there was kind of a little bit of, oh, okay, well, if they've done it, then that's cool, I can do it too. But once I actually started to understand what this sport in pajamas was, my role models were more judo players that I started to get to know. So my first athlete that inspired me was one that was in the club that I was at first. A guy called James Miller, who was also a bronze medalist in the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow. And he was my first coach's son. So he was probably my first, he has medals, I want to be like that. That was probably my first step.
Nice. So the next question is, I mentioned that you always did sport, like, throughout school, but what inspired you to go into the competitive side of it? Like, was there a specific reason for that?
you think you can be competitive just from birth? Like, can that just run through your veins?
Absolutely, because I'm like that too.
I know you are. I remember that perfectly well from school. I think I'm a competitive person.
Yeah.
And not in a bad way, but always wanting more for myself. I always want to push myself a bit more. And once I realized, or once I was introduced to a sport that I really did like, without even, when I was little, I never thought, I know what I want to be. I want to be a judo player, because judo wasn't in Ullapool, like wasn't exposed to it. But once I started doing it, I realized that actually there's also more than what is judo within a sports centre. Because I'd go to Invergordon and I'd do judo there, and I think we're frozen. There we go. I'd go to Invergordon and I'd do judo there, but I realised actually outside that there's loads of competitions and there's Olympics. And once I knew what the Olympics were, well, just had to be competitive. So yeah, I'm just a competitive person, I think. Always have been.
You know, traveling down to Invergordon, did that ever throw you off doing judo because of the travel?
No, because I'd go one time a week. I'd go on a Saturday, and I'd go through with my dad and my wee sister. And my other sister would go to ballet in Dingwall, and my mum would go to Tai Chi in Dingwall. So it was like everybody down there.
Yeah.
And actually didn't really think about the fact that I was traveling. And then as soon as I realised that I liked judo, I started going through on a Monday and a Friday, but to Inverness, which was harder because there my mum and dad once in a while would take me, but they couldn't always. And you know perfectly well that the transport's not exactly
Yeah.
So a lot of the time I could get myself to Contin, and it just so happened that someone there also did judo in the Inverness club, and I didn't really know them, but they were judo players, so I'd stay there at their house until it was time to go to judo. And then my mum and dad would pick me up from Contin on the way back. That, or I would hitchhike or go all the way through to Inverness somehow, and then just work it out from there basically. And that was the easy part, because afterwards I found out that there was a bigger training session in Edinburgh on a Wednesday night for my level, and I was like, I can go there. It's only 4 hours away. So that was more complicated, but I was finished school by then, or finishing school by then, and I'd have to take like one day off of work because I was also working like the Seaforth and all that kind of thing. So I'd have to take a day off to be able to travel through for bus services, and then I'd get back on the Thursday morning. But instead of it putting me off, I think it made me more, like I said, competitive. I was like, right, if I'm doing this, I'm doing this. And if it's far away, well, it's far away. And if I'm going to travel all day there and then come back the following day and I only train for 2 hours, that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
It was all really very exaggerated, but I didn't let it put me off. I just let it make me stronger, if you want to put it that way.
Yeah.
So another question is, what are some of the challenges you faced and how did you overcome them?
Other than bus travel.
And hitchhiking.
I realize I put a lot on that. That's not even, like, that's nothing. The biggest challenges within the sport, I think the biggest challenges that you face are injuries.
Have you ever had a serious injury?
Yeah, I didn't know if I was going to fight the commies or not. I snapped my ACL and had surgery within a week in November. And to fight the Commonwealth Games, that was exactly 8 months post-surgery. So I hadn't trained up until then. I'd been in recovery, which you could call it, like, if you watch me, you'd say you are training, but our recovery is totally different to actual training, because for a long time you can't actually walk, to put it that way. So yeah, I didn't know I was going to fight commies or not, but I was going about my life as if I was going to commies. That's my most serious injury. But I've had several other injuries, and they've probably even been a bit harder. And I think just in general, injuries, they're difficult, but if they get you at a difficult point in your life as well, if life's throwing whatever it's throwing at you, if you're not ready here, then the challenge of an injury is very, very difficult. Because if it's your knee, for example, you can't move. I was a month that for over 2 weeks I had a cast on my whole leg. So I couldn't even actually go to the toilet like properly. I'd lift myself from the sofa. So if this is my leg, I'd lift myself from the sofa using my arms on my leg and a towel to try and move it and put it onto a chair, so that then I could wheel myself through on a computer chair to the toilet. But the cast was up to my backside, so I couldn't even sit properly on the toilet. And it's so heavy. It's just really silly little things that you, every single day, you wake up, and when you're lying in bed, it's okay. But then you know that you've got the whole of the day to go through, and then the next day is going to be the same. I'd say injury is the hardest, because you don't have control over your life.
I think it's worth noting, adding to that, so just in case anyone doesn't know what ACL is, that's one of your major ligaments in your knee. So very, very serious injury. And just to add, that makes the performance at the Commonwealth Games even more impressive to be added to that.
And the fact that you got the bronze.
Yeah.
Have you ever been limited to any opportunities during judo because of your gender? And if you have, how did you overcome?
I really thought about that question when it came through. Have I ever? Or when someone was stronger than me, did I just get stronger? Very competitive. I don't think so, and I'll explain why. When I first started in Invergordon, there wasn't really many girls, and there wasn't really many boys my weight and that kind of thing either. So I would train with people like my dad and other men. So that kind of takes away the bridge of girls only go with girls and boys only go with boys. Without even thinking about it, there's straight away a mix. But then judo is divided completely into a girls and a boys sport. And a lot of the time you do feel the difference. I mean, like, in terms of if you don't have a partner for a sparring, for example, then a lot of the time you do get the, I'm not going to fight with a girl. And in some points, that kind of pushes you back a little bit.
Yeah.
And you're like, why? Like, just fight me. It's 4 minutes. Just fight with me. And a lot of the time they will, but then a lot of the time they don't try. And then that makes you even more angry. So there's a little bit of this, like, constantly. But in general, I would say that it's quite well balanced. But I think there's an obvious gender difference in the sport because it has to be that way. Physically, boys and girls are not the same.
Yeah.
And so you have to actually, girls fight girls, boys fight boys, and then I don't fight people that are out of my category in competition. We fight within weight categories, so everything is really very Japanese, really very, very divided. But if you go to Japan, for example, if you ask me that question and I was in Japan, I'd be able to answer it totally different. I've been quite a lot of times. girls train with girls, boys train with boys. There's one university, for example, the boys have a huge what we call dojo, which is where they train, huge mat area where they train, and it's like you come you come into the building and it's there on the right. If you go down the stairs and down more stairs where the changing rooms are, there's also a boxing ring. If you go behind the boxing ring and through the door, then there's a small dojo that's for the girls. There's in some places there's a lot of differences. For me personally, it's not affected me, and if it had, I'd be in a lot of trouble, because in my club here, for example, in Spain, it's mostly boys. There's a few girls and a few more now, but my training partner's a boy, so you have to learn to manage that, and for it not to be a problem, because there's plenty other problems.
Yeah.
So the next question is, what do you think your highlight is and your greatest achievement so far in your sporting career?
Probably my greatest achievement in terms of medals and exposure and what it means on a bigger level from the outside is the Commonwealth Games bronze, because it's the only time that you get to fight for Scotland, which, as proud Scots, I think I think we'll understand that. So that was special. That was really different. In the judo world, actually doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Most people don't even know that it exists. So for me as an athlete, in what my path and my goals are, it doesn't actually help me. But as a person and as a Scottish person, that's probably my biggest achievement. Yeah.
How did you feel when you were standing on the podium? Like, what sort of emotions?
Like everything was really big.
Yeah.
Usually we don't usually compete on a stage, and I was on on a stage, which was really, really cool. They did it so well. There was so many lights. There was a DJ. Everything. It was really, and the crowd was amazing. The crowd was so good. What did I feel? Don't take this wrong. I felt relief. I was just like, right, okay, I've done my job.
Yeah.
I didn't get gold because I lost the fight, but I've done my job. My job was to take a medal, whatever happens.
Yeah.
And my bronze fight was, it was so long. It was
Yeah, I was about to say, no wonder you felt relief after that fight.
Oh my god, she's one of my best mates, and it was a hard fight, but very long. It was so long. Do you remember Elizabeth Lucas?
Yeah.
Well, Lil was in the crowd, and she only came for the second block. She was like, "I'm sorry, I couldn't get tickets for the first part, but actually, with your fight being so long, I feel like I got to see everything." I was like, "That's why I did it for you." And I felt relieved. I was just like, "Okay, so I've done my part in this. I got the medal. That's what I came for."
After your fight, did you, ever have a moment where you like, I could get bronze, or did you expect less? Did you expect more?
I expected a medal. For me, I had to get a medal, whatever happened. I think I could have got gold, but not that day.
Yeah.
Because I'm not making up any sort of excuse or anything, but I wasn't at my 100% with my knee, with having trained. My knee's perfect, but after a recovery, then you have to train, and then you get to compete. So I wasn't in my moment, and you're never at 100%, are you? But I wasn't even close yet. So I think further on, The girl who won my category is actually second in the world.
Wow.
She's not just, she's actually second in the world. And the girl who got second, she's number 36, or 32. 32 or 36, round about there, an English girl. So our category was actually a really hard category. Like our podium were people that are fighting internationally all the time. So it was a really good podium, is what we would say. And I think 100%. I think I'm able to beat anybody on my day. I wasn't ready on that day, but I was ready to do my job, which was to get a medal. That was my focus.
So what would you say your goals for the future are?
Olympics.
Yeah, you know it's going to be the case.
Are you hoping to make the next Olympics?
Yeah. I'm trying for Paris 24, and then for the following ones in 28. But first things first.
Yeah.
First goes Paris, and it already isn't easy, and it's going to get harder. But that's the goal.
You're ready for it? Yeah.
I hope so. I hope I will. I hope I get there. It's a very, very, very difficult process. Maybe if you ask me what challenges have you faced further along there, I'll have a different answer. Yeah, injuries are nothing. Crying all the time is the hard part.
And our last question is, do you have any advice for younger girls who are wanting to go into sports, especially during their high school experience?
Also thought a lot about this question. I think nowadays we are hugely moved by Instagram, for example, which I'm totally neutral about, not saying it's good or bad. I think girls in high school, they worry a lot about what they look like to other people, how they feel to other people. You know, the same story as always, and that's fine. That's totally fine. If that's the way it is, then I think we should accept it. But there is ways to make that person who's worried about what other people are thinking. There is a way around that, I think. And I don't think it's a bad thing if a girl is on Instagram and sees another girl who's maybe, I don't know, doing CrossFit, or just goes to the gym and is a Gymshark model. I don't think it's a bad thing if you think, I'd like to look more like her. I want to do poses like that in the gym and put that on my stories. That's totally fine. If that's your goal, that's fine. I think it's fundamental that all kids, all high school people, all humans, I think we should all do sport.
Yeah.
Whether it's sport or working out or just some sort of activity. Now, girls in high school. I think we've always been told girls mature much faster than boys. Okay, so it's scientifically proven, sure. But as well as maturing, what comes with that in high school? Low self-confidence, feeling of judgment, of embarrassment, of I'm in PE and don't really feel like jogging on the spot because I don't really know how that looks. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah,
End of
100%.
the shot. Do some star jumps. No, because we think too much.
Yeah.
So I think whether it's for someone that wants to compete because they're competitive, or whether it's someone that just enjoys doing athletics, that enjoys doing a specific sport, football, shinty, whatever sport it is, then they should keep doing it. And for anyone who's in the PE class that's worried about, oh, but my group of girls, we're not actually doing the warm up, we're just here because we have to be. Okay, you're here because you have to be, but that's the same in maths. That's the same in any class that you have to be in. High school I always say this to kids here in Spain. High school doesn't last forever. Thank God. It doesn't last forever. But what you do in high school is what dictates what happens afterwards.
Yeah.
And yeah, sure, you can start doing more once you're out there. You can do courses that maybe you failed when you're in high school, but that's taken away so much of your time. If you're in high school now and you have to be in high school because you do, then do it now. And if it's sport, well, do it now because you have an hour or whatever you have that's put there, that's forced on you, but that's going to look after you once you're finished high school. That's going to be, if you want to be the influencer or the person who puts up posts all the time, if that's what you're interested in what you look like, okay, well, do something about it now. You've got 1 hour in PE, just jog on the spot. No one's actually watching you. You think they are. But at the end of the day, if your self-interest is completely you, well, do that. But do it right. Like do it with something positive. It's okay to be embarrassed. It's okay not to like sport. But it's important to do what your body needs, to do what your mind needs, and we have to do some sort of activity. And I repeat, high school doesn't last forever. Just bear with it, whether it's PE or maths or whatever it is, you're being forced to do it anyway. So I think it's a bit of a barrier that it frustrates me. It does frustrate me, and it's not just in Scotland. It's not just in Great Britain. It's in Madrid. It's in France. It's everywhere. And girls are very difficult, and that's just the way we are. But we're also a very stubborn bunch, and we can go really, really far as long as we just stay concentrated on what's in front of us.
Very true.
Yeah.
It's inspiring. I've got goosebumps, I tell you. No, brilliant. Thank you very much. That was fantastic. Thank you for taking time out of your busy training schedule, Malin, to talk to Esmee and Poppy and myself. It's been great to catch up with you. And we'll speak to you after you win your gold medal at the Olympics.
It's been lovely. Thank you.
Thank
Very
you guys.
inspiring as well.
Yeah.
And if you ever have any other questions or whatnot, then just give me a shout.